we'll give you guys back to the the Make or Break show. We're hanging out with the one and only Jimmy Diresta today, who gets all kinds of phone calls because you are a super popular band all over the place. Now, are you in New York right now?
I am in my house in upstate New York.
Okay, is this your new house, new shop, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, well, I've owned this house for 15 years, 14 years, and I used to come here on weekends. I bought this house originally with the whole intention of moving up here, moving my life and everything. And then all my work began to just keep going on and on locally in New York City. And so I kept the shop, and then all of a sudden YouTube became a thing for me, which we can get into the details of it. And then all of a sudden, after 15 years down there, I bought the house and rented that space almost at the same time. And I had to get out of that space, and finally I made this house what it was originally intended for, my home. And I rented a shop down the block, but we're also building one in the backyard. It gets really confusing.
Yeah. Is that the one you said you had steel delivery coming this morning?
Exactly. Yeah, I was there at 7 this morning. I got a big truckload of steel for a bunch of upcoming projects.
That's cool. I think I was following your Instagram story and saw a bunch of folks out there with lots of things going on, which is cool.
Oh, yeah. That's my buddy's here. He's building in the background. Kyle from Western Illinois. He's here building.
Cool. Yeah. Well, I kind of want to get into your backstory. I know you've pretty much been building all your life, and I was listening to a ton of different interviews with you, and it sounded like, was it your dad that kind of got you into working? He just kind of put stuff in front of you?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, growing up, my dad always had a workshop, and he always had tools around. Growing up, his dad had tools around, and then my dad got more into it. And then he bought more and more tools. And then now I am taking it from my grandfather had a workbench with a couple things on it. My dad had a basement, and now I have a warehouse. So if I ever have kids, forget it.
They're going to have
a football field.
Yeah, that's awesome. Was it, what was the stuff you started doing? Like, do you remember like really early projects from when you were young that you worked on?
Yeah. And my dad, I used to hang out with him and help him carry wood and stuff. And occasionally he would let me try and hammer a nail. This is when I was real little, but I remember he kind of kept me busy by just handing me a box of scraps and a hot glue gun.
That's cool.
And go do what you got to do. And that's what I would do. I would just make things out of the scrap box with hot glue and just hot glue things together. And I was really like around 6 or 7 years old. Okay. I remember this big clunky, back in the day, 40-year-old hot glue gun. It was fun.
Is there a project that you remember making, like you remember being like really proud of, like, oh, this is cool, like actually made this?
Yeah, I get that question often. Actually, we just talked about it on my podcast with Bob and Dave. But no, it's sort of a common answer. My dad let me use the jigsaw, so I would use this old giant, big old Craftsman jigsaw. Now it's commonly called a what the hell are they called? I call it a jigsaw, but it's called the ones like the old men have the clubs where they cut out little silhouettes. What is that called?
Oh, the scroll saw? Like
a scroll saw, that's it. See, and that's like kind of a new name for me. I used to call it a jigsaw. And so we had the table mounted jigsaw, and he let me cut out a couple of shapes. My dad would draw images out of magazines, and he drew an image of a seahorse, and I cut out the silhouette of it. And then he set me up with a common Dremel tool, but it was a Sears version of the Dremel tool.
Okay.
And he did 1 or 2 for me to show me what to do, and then I did the rest, the scallops on the surface of the seahorse. And then he burnt it for me, and then I wire brushed it, and then I painted it. And it was the very first thing I looked at, and I said, wow, I can't believe I made that. That's really cool. I always say it, and people who listen to me a lot are probably going to get bored by the things I repeat, but the one thing I always say is you want to make something that the very next morning, the minute you wake up, you want to run to your shop and look at it. You've ever had that feeling?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, right. And you ever had the feeling the opposite, where you wake up and you're like, oh, I got to get back into that project I hate?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
I'm working on some expecting in February, me and my wife, and so I'm working on some like built-in shelves for our closet, and I'm just painting and tons of painting right now, and it's like 12 different cubbies, and I'm like, this is horrible. Like I want to be done with this. I want to start working on something cool. So your dad was,
that project was one of those.
Oh, gotcha.
My dad was a New York City firefighter.
Okay.
And he was also a carpenter on the side. He always had to make ends meet. They don't pay a lot in the fire department in New York.
Yeah.
Back at least in the 60s and 70s. And so my dad was always doing side work and also working with other firemen.
Okay.
All the time.
So was making early on, was that something you always knew, like, this is going to be what I do? like the rest of my life, or does it just kind of
One
evolve?
thing just kept leading to another.
Okay.
My dad set up me and my brothers. He would hand draw letters on a strip of wood, and we would cut them out. And my dad would say, "Bring these to school and charge a quarter a letter, and get names from other kids." So we'd go and get little nameplates. We'd have a little notebook, a little black notebook. My brother Joey is 5 years older than me, and John, who's been on TV with me, he's 2 years older than me. And the three of us would, in each one of our own grades, we would collect names from other students, and we'd come home with the list of names, and my dad would hand draw them out, and we would all jigsaw them out on the jigsaw, and we would go back to school 2 days later with them. We would burn them, wire brush them to raise the grain, and then give them a coat of shellac. So it was pretty amazing. My dad kind of put that entrepreneurial spirit into us early on.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and that all I've ever done my whole life is do stuff like that. I never had a paper out. I never worked in a restaurant. I never worked at a cash register. All I've ever done is make things. One thing led to another. I'd also help my dad in his side work, doing handyman work or installations, making shelves.
That's cool.
And then I got a job at a sign shop when I was in high school. I worked at 2 different sign shops. I did a lot of my own private sign work. So yeah,
That's cool.
one thing led to another.
Yeah. So you went to the School of Visual Arts, is that right?
I went to the School of Visual Arts from 1985 to 1990. Yep.
And for
I
your
graduated with the Bachelor in Fine Arts.
what about that made you decide you wanted to go to school versus
Well,
just
I
keep...
was going in high school. I went to architecture school.
Okay.
And I was going to be an architect, but I don't like math.
Yeah.
And I had a really hard time with math. I actually cheated to get out of my state regents exam. I said to the kid in front of me, I said, "Please let me cheat off you." I said, "I'm never going into this career. I just need to graduate high school."
That's awesome.
And I cheated off the kid in front of me, and he kind of moved his elbow so I could see his work, because you had to have that little yellow square sheet that showed you how you arrived at your answer. So I copied everything off his page. And that's how I graduated high school, Regents Physics. So it was really high, because I went through 10th, 11th, and 12th grade architecture school. And I loved the aspect of the geometry and the design aspect. I hated having to be the engineer and the mathematics. It just wasn't fun to me. And I knew right there and then I was more of an artist than an engineer. And I figured when I was also slowly becoming interested in, say, Picasso and Andy Warhol and Leonardo da Vinci. And I thought to myself, all these guys are famous artists in one way or another. They could just hire a geek that knows how to use a calculator to do all these calculations.
Yeah.
I could certainly be an architect as a designer. I don't need to know all this math. And so I started to pursue a career in art as opposed to architecture.
When you went in, and I know art is like super broad, did you have like a focus you were thinking of when you started school, or was it something in all the different mediums?
I didn't really know. I thought I was going to be a graphic designer. That's
Okay.
what everybody said. Oh, go into graphic design. Go into graphic design. And then when I got into graphic design, I hated it. I was like, wow, this isn't fun. I was making all these excuses to use 3-dimensional approaches to all my solutions. And I met a teacher who changed my life. He was all about 3-dimensional design. And he was introduced to me by another teacher who saw me struggling. So my graphic design teacher saw me struggling and nearly wanting to quit school just because I wasn't being fulfilled in my second year at art school. And he goes, "Come with me." And he brought me, because this is where you belong. And it was Kevin, who I've talked about in the past, Kevin O'Callahan. He's a teacher of 3-dimensional design. In 1986, I guess it was 87, he basically, I found my home where every solution was made 3-dimensionally in any materials, hot glue. So, we used table saws, jigsaws, bandsaws. Prior to that, I was in graphic designs trying to make all my solutions in graphic design were done 3-dimensionally, and then I would photograph them. Whereas everybody was using line arts and rule. There was no computers at the time, so they were drawing on boards.
What about his teaching? I guess other than the fact you were working in 3D, what about him like really drew you in his class? And then
It was all about concept, conceptual design, and the way that, for instance, like redesign this cover of this magazine and do a 3-dimensional illustration. And he really emphasized how you need to have a strong concept as well as a good execution. And that was really kind of early on for me. And that's why David Welder also took the same teacher 20 years later. And I feel Dave and I have similar work. Dave's kind of taken a hiatus from YouTube, but he's planning on getting back into it. And my little dog Chippy's chewing on a wire.
Oh, you're totally fine.
Get over here. I saw him. Um, yeah, and so Dave Welder and I both had Kevin as teachers 20 years apart, and we one day were talking, and we were like, "Wow, it's funny how similar, our work is as far as concept, and how it's important to have an interesting concept, practical or non-practical, or just as long as there's a concept, it could be funny, instead of just make it a simple box. It has to be a box that's about something or has a very clever, interesting design. And I
Gotcha.
think that's really strongly emphasized by my teacher Kevin that I mentioned.
Yeah. So was he the one that brought you back? Because you also, I mean, you just recently stopped teaching. Was he kind of how you
Yep.
got back into it as a teacher?
Yeah, well, I graduated, and then 2 years later, he hired me. Actually, 3 years later, he hired me to be a teacher. Yeah, so I ended up starting my first semester in '94, and yeah, it was definitely Kevin who got me back in teaching. So he was sort of my chairperson, you might say.
Yeah.
Uh, and then trying to think the chronological order. And then I taught for about 23 years, and then I just got to a point where I was just getting so busy with them these YouTube opportunities,
Yeah.
and everybody wants me to go do a lecture, so I travel on Friday, do a lecture on a Saturday, and then Friday was always my class. So the last semester I taught, I missed 3 classes because I had to travel, and so I decided, you know what? And it was good timing because I got hired to do this show on NBC this whole month of September. This would have been the first. This is the first September that I haven't had school in 23
Oh
years.
wow. Yeah.
Yeah, so I spent the whole month of September in California for this TV show I just did on NBC.
Yeah. So how is your approach to making? How has it changed? Taught for so long, because you had to bring it back to the basics so much. How has that changed, or
That's
has
that's
it?
a good question. Yeah, no. I guess my approach has always been instructional in a way because even when I was a student, I did so many unusual things that other students would be like, "How do you do that?" And I would always share information. I was never one of those people that would hoard contacts and avenues of information. I would always share everything with everybody. So it always just came natural to me. I was always the student. I stopped drinking early on. I stopped drinking alcohol at the age of 20. So that was in my second, maybe my first or second year at School of Visual Arts. So for the next few years, I took it extremely serious. And all the other students, this is a very generalized statement, a lot of the other students would party because they lived in New York and they would hang around the city. And I would go home and work and then do my homework and, over deliver early. And then I'd come back to the city on a train. And all my other co-students were, had hangovers and, waking up from the night before. And I would always have a much more serious approach to my homework. And students would be like, "Where'd you get that? What did you do?" I'm like, "Oh, I went down to Canal Street. I went to this new cool shop I found." And oh wow, it was all before the internet, so you really had to kind of walk around like a detective and figure things out.
That's cool.
So
So
and the city was my resource basically.
yeah, and so I know you. I mean, you guys just got done doing. Was it the axe class that you're doing last week? Is that right?
Yeah, we did an axe handle making class. Yep, it
This
was
is
great.
like late October that we're recording this.
Yep.
Your approach to teaching like changed at all? Like, or like if you were like designing like a class, like what are you thinking through um, as like the best way to approach it?
Well, honestly, now that I'm kind of YouTube famous, my classes are much more personable.
Mm,
Whereas I would start from zero.
yeah,
You could imagine like I'd walk into a room of 25, 20-year-olds, and they'd all be staring right at me, not knowing who I was or if this class was even worth their time. And then I would have to win them over.
yeah,
I would have to. It was basically like, and humor for me is a very big thing. Keeping a 25-person class interested in everything you say, it's extremely important. I remember my teachers that were open, honest, and funny most of all were the ones I loved the most. And so I try to be open, honest, and funny. And I interact with the students. As soon as they ask me a question, I try and give them the best answer. And I always make some of the students feel like they're part of the teaching process. There was always one student I would banter with and have fun with, and then they would like it, and so they wouldn't mind being the teacher's pet, so to speak. And so I always look for somebody to goof with, and the students would immediately lighten up. But now I don't have to do that because if I hold a class of axe making handle kids, they all know me,
yeah,
and it's like we're on like our 20th date, and they immediately like, "Oh, hey, I know this guy.
yeah,
I'm happy to be here on my 20th date."
yeah,
You know, and so it makes life a lot easier for me where I don't have to win over a group of people.
yeah.
So That's the best thing about, this YouTube fame and still teaching in this YouTube fame.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, most of my students in the last few years didn't really know who I was, but that's only because, the millennials are onto other things. They're looking at dubstep videos and whatever else.
Yeah. Is that weird for you at all when people come up to you? I mean, especially now with your vlogs and how personal you are in your YouTube channel, that folks about you, but do you have no clue about the person that you're talking with? Is that ever strange?
Honestly, it doesn't matter to me at all.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not doing anything illegal. I have no, I have no Access Hollywood videotapes in my past. So,
Yeah.
I lived an honest life, and I have nothing to worry about coming back to haunt me. And everybody I meet is super nice and has been super. It's so funny. This never happens to me ever, but I had an extremely enthusiastic fan write me just a couple days ago, and he works for Lumberyard, and he said, "Oh, we can provide you with this, something I've gotten a million times on my own. I don't really need this particular species of wood he's trying to sell me." And I said, "Oh, cool, man, that's great." And so I didn't really place an order for lumber as if he was like implying for me to do.
Yeah.
I said, "That's great, whatever." And now it's like 4 days later. This was before the end of this week,
Okay.
like Friday. And he writes me back last night, "It's really sad that you haven't answered this email yet.
Oh, wow.
I guess you're too busy with your new TV show." I was like, what the? He's asking me to buy something from his store. He's not even giving it to me, and I don't expect him to give it to me.
Yeah.
But it was a sales email.
Yeah.
And he gave me accolades because he likes my YouTube channel. I said, "Great, thanks." I'm not obligated to buy from him because he likes my YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Something I have thousands of board feet of.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so I wrote back to him. I said, "What exactly do you want from me? Here's my phone number. Give me a call. Let's talk about it." So now he has my phone number and he's not calling me.
Yeah.
What exactly did he want from me? That's the only thing I can remember that got super weird, and that happened last night.
That's crazy. That's really crazy.
So, and I mean, it's not even a big deal, but he said, "It's really sad that you haven't answered this email." I have emails from 7 months ago that I haven't answered, and I eventually answer them, and I say, "Hey, dude, thanks for..." Because when I have free time, which is very little these days, I'll just scroll through emails and see ones which I opened, read, and I just haven't answered.
Yeah.
I look for that little tiny arrow on the left side of the email, and I'm like, "Oh, that looks interesting. Let me open." I didn't answer that. Oh, let me answer that now. So 99.99999% of the people I meet, except for that one person, don't get weird.
That's good. That's funny that happened last week. All right. Yeah. So going back to School of Visual Arts, so you're teaching. After that, is that when you got into like toy making, toy design? I know you've mentioned like a ton of like factory visits to China in the early 2000s. Is that kind of that next step for you?
Well, I was in School of Visual Arts learning how to work with my teacher, Kevin, who I mentioned. We got into three-dimensional illustration.
Okay.
And then in my final semester of school, which was the second half of the last year, I met a teacher named Mark Ducati. And Mark and I hit it off right away. Mark is a toy inventor, and he taught a class called Toys and Games, inventing and designing toys and games. And right away, Mark encouraged me. He said, "Wow, you got a really good mind for this." And he's the one who kind of brought me into the toy business. I owe him a huge debt of gratitude, and we still talk. We're friends. And he got me into the toy business and the business of selling ideas. It's not an easy business. I was never hugely successful at it, but I did make a career of it. But also the idea of marketing ideas and selling yourself, that's a big part of my YouTube. And that all came from my experience at the toy business. So, yep.
Is there a toy that you look back or a design you look back on as like your favorite from that period?
Well, the most successful toy I've ever done, and I think, in my world, it was successful, was a toy called Gurgling Guts. It's a squishy eyeball, and you squeeze it. And
I had one of those.
That was my invention.
That's
and
awesome.
That invention. It established a category of toys, I believe. I mean, some people might dispute that, but I believe it established a category of gross toys, which were pretty popular in the 90s. We did that in 94. So, for the next 5 years, there were all these gross toys like Dr. Gory or something from where you'd make like gross things to eat and like slimy toys. And so, yeah, I believe I was a big part of that. Either that or I was right at the right time, and me and a couple of inventors came up with it all together. That's cool. The category of gross.
Yeah. What's that process like? Because when I think I heard you first mention on the Making It podcast saying that you invented toys, and I'm like, I've never even heard of someone does that? Like, do you just come up with an idea and then you pitch it to a company? Like, how does that process work?
Yeah, that's basically it. You come up with some ideas. You got to really do your research because it's embarrassing when you walk into a company and you show them an idea and they open their catalog from 4 years earlier and they're like, we did that already.
Yeah.
So you really have to do your homework. You got to, one of the most precious commodities in the toy business was old catalogs. And me and my brother have a huge collection of old toy catalogs. Like we have thousands of toy catalogs from every year. And they're hard to get because you have to get the catalog from a salesperson. And we have toy catalogs from the 80s and 90s and the 70s, 80s and 90s. I don't have any past like 95, 96. That's kind of when I stopped collecting, but we got old collections from old friends of ours that were in the toy business. But those are the biggest resource. And now, of course, the internet probably has millions of indexes of toy catalogs. But as a toy inventor, you want to research and make sure that the toy that you're coming up with is a new derivative or a new patentable project, something different that's been already manufactured in its category. A lot of times you can come up with a little widget and you can license that little widget to say like a Barbie doll category, which is long-standing brand. So if you can become a parasite in another brand, that's always good too. Mm-hmm. Or when I did Gurgling Guts, we made a lot of money on a license called Goosebumps. Goosebumps book series came to us and said, hey, can we put our licensing on all of your patentable image? Gotcha. I said, sure. So we made more money with Goosebumps licensing than we did with the actual concept of the squishy eyeball.
Gotcha.
The patentable product was the ball inside of the skin that slurped and spit on the liquid inside.
Yeah.
And then they made it in all the characters from the Goosebumps books, which some of them weren't really a fit. We even did Star Wars ones, but nobody bought them.
Oh, really?
So weird.
That's awesome.
Yeah. The guys that owned the patent, it was our patent and we licensed it to these guys. And, they basically rented our space and paid us rent. That's kind of the same concept.
Okay.
And while they were renting our space of the patent, so to speak, they licensed it to as many things as they could figure out. Because it was, these things also have a time life.
Yeah.
So you want to try and rinse them with as much money as you can. Rinse all the money out of them.
Gotcha. So you probably are definitely the first one we've had on who has a career in actual television, like big boy television, not just YouTube. Was your first show, was it Trash to Cash in 2003 with FX?
Yep, that was Trash to Cash was the first show. I just learned how to edit and I started putting together little sequences and my brother said, hey, why don't you put together a sequence of me picking garbage and trying to make a table out of it?
Yeah.
And so we shot it. It was like 35 minutes long. And I always talk about my friend Barry Katz, who was my brother's manager at the time. And Barry has a successful podcast called The Industry Standard. It's all about show business. And so Barry was John's manager at the time, and he sat with me at the editing booth, which was basically the laptop. And we went through and I recut the 35 minutes down to 7 minutes. And that was also where I learned the importance of having a short, tight video. And that was the first video I ever edited. And we sold it shortly thereafter to Fox TV.
That's cool. So
Barry brought it in and set up a meeting, and we were able to sell it.
If your brother hadn't already had experience kind of in that network television world, would that have been something you think you ever would have approached? Like, would that?
Oh, it's funny because my brother was getting from 98, 99, 2000, 2001, my brother was kind of popping in the TV business, and everybody kept saying to me, oh, you're young, good looking, you should go to the TV business. And I always said, I swear to God, I remember having 10 conversations with a few people and saying, I don't want to get into that business unless I could be myself. Yeah. I'm not an actor. And I always said, I would only get into that. And I didn't even know if reality TV was a thing at the time. I said, I would just want to be myself. Like I see Norm Abrams at the time and Bob Vila and those kind of the guys. I was like, if I could be myself, like they're being their selves, that's how I would get into TV. I would never try and do what my brother was constantly doing, is acting. My brother was an actor.
Yeah.
So I said, I would only ever get into TV if I could just be myself. And now 2003 comes along and we pitched this show about making things out of the garbage. And the guy in the meeting, the producer who was buying the show, he said, what is your role in this? He looked at me and I said, well, I just want to be behind the scenes to be able to provide ideas for my brother. And I could make, I had overqualified, I have a portfolio, which was like over deliver is basically, always my motto, over deliver so people are happy. And I showed him my portfolio and he goes, wow. He goes, why don't you just be the guy that makes stuff? And he said to John, why don't you just be funny? You just be the host, let him make stuff and you be the guy that drives the show with your comedy and your banter. And that's how our partnership in TV began right there and then. And he looks at me and goes, would you be on TV? Are you okay with being on TV? I said, sure. Because let's shoot a pilot and see if it works. And we shot a pilot and it was a lot of fun. And we did 7 episodes of that show. And the show quickly got canceled because a TV show named Nip Tuck came in and took over the whole network, and
Oh
they
yeah.
canceled like 15 shows just to make drama shows.
Yeah.
And then I started got the bug. I started making pitches. I bought a brand new camera. I bought a Panasonic DVX 100, and I started making TV pitches. And we made a couple of pitches right there. In the summer of 2004, we made like 4 TV show pitches. One of them was called Making It with John and Jimmy, and that's the show that became Hammered. And later that same summer, I made a pitch for a TV show called Lord of the Fleas, and that became Dirty Money. So in the summer of 2004 was like the big summer where I came up with those 2 big ideas, which ended up both becoming TV shows. And I say me and my brother developed those shows. And I'll have to admit, John came up with the concept of both of those straight away.
Yeah.
And then we developed them into the ideas they became.
So you guys are doing these shows. Are you still like building, doing like client work on the side too? Or is it kind of TV your full-time deal at this point?
No, well, TV is all consuming. So
Okay.
when I did the TV show Trash to Cash, the first one, I had to move to LA for a few months. So I moved to LA for like 3 months. We shot probably for a month and a half, but I kind of hung around with my brother making stuff, selling at the flea market,
Gotcha.
hoping the show would pick back up, and it never did. So I came back to New York. I was actually teaching, so that was the whole summer. I had to get back to New York before
Gotcha.
school started. So
Okay.
I came back to New York before school started. And then a few years went by, and we had the tape kicking around of what became Hammered. And I got a call from my friend at HGTV, who I had a meeting with the person at HGTV, sent her that tape and a couple of tapes of concepts we were doing. And we never heard anything. And it just goes to show you persistence, and you just never know. I dropped the tape off there, had the meeting, left them with a couple of videotapes. This is before videotapes were defunct. And in 2005, I got a phone call from the woman I met with at HGTV, and she said, "Hey, are you still interested in being in this game?" I was like, "Yeah, why? What's up?" She's like, "You left us a videotape of you and your brother making something in the basement. We really like this. Is this something you would want to do as a TV show?" I said, "Sure." And the show was fast tracked. It only takes one person internally to let that's of importance or of power, and your show will get made.
Yeah.
It's really always just one person. That's what you call a champion. So our champion was a woman named Beth, and she pushed it through, and we ended up making the show, which became Hammered. We did 28 episodes. And as we were making the show, the network really didn't know how to market it. They were a little nervous about the show because my brother's edgy comedy, and he and I bantering and being weird. You know, if you watch any of the HGTV shows now, they're just like this kind of super lighthearted humor.
Yeah.
No one really takes any directional. You know, it's like, oh,
Yeah.
oh my God, he put the cup on the thing. You know, it's like no cutting edge humor. And cutting edge, I mean, you know, like nobody like, look, you tripped. You know, that's cutting edge humor for HGTV.
Yeah.
And they did not like any of that slapsticky stuff. And so they made the show because they were committed to 28 episodes, but I don't think they weren't super proud of it. We were happy with what came out. I mean, there was always compromises with executive producers and stuff. You know, anytime you do a TV show, you walk away feeling like you gave a little bit, you had to give up a little too much. No, I don't care who it is. You walk away going, I guess that was fun.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's TV. You walk away going, I guess that was good.
Yeah. What got you into YouTube initially? Was your first video December 2012? Did I see that right? Or somewhere around that range?
My YouTube, yeah. Well, what happened was I'll tell you a quick story about how I ended up getting Dirty Money on the air. So
Okay.
I Dirty Money was a tape I had sitting around. It was called Lord of the Fleas. My brother came up with the idea. He goes, "Hey, let's pick the garbage and make it into stuff and sell it at a flea market." I said, "That's a good idea. We'll fix it up or whatever." And so we made a tape in the summer of 2004. We pitched it around. It got a lot of traction. We almost ended up selling it to Comedy Central of all people, and Discovery Channel liked it also. But then it just never went anywhere. You know, you drop these ideas off, and it's like you just send them out into the world, and
Yeah.
you don't know what's going to happen. And so I put it on my YouTube channel. I said, "Oh, YouTube just started. Let me put this on YouTube, see if anybody's interested." It got about 800 hits on YouTube, but I was not getting traction on YouTube at all. And then I had a meeting in 2010 with a friend of mine who owns a production company. His company is the company that made Cribs and a lot of MTV stuff.
Yep.
And I said, "When are you gonna?" Because all he ever did was post production. So his place, he owned editing rooms and editing equipment. All he did was post production. He never actually produced his own show. So I said to Mike, "I go, when are you going to produce your own show? You got all the material and you got everything in place. All you need is a good idea. He goes, we've been shopping for a good idea. You got one? And I said, oh, check out Lord of the Fleas on my YouTube channel. He calls me that week and goes, I want to try and sell this to Discovery. Have they seen it? I go, yeah, they saw it years ago, but the turnover at these companies is incredible. I said, I guarantee if you showed it, nobody would know nobody would remember seeing it. P.S. He showed it to Discovery. They bought it. They bought it almost right immediately. And we ended up they changed the name to Dirty Money. And we did 12 episodes in the summer of 2011. And halfway through shooting, about episode 5, which nothing has aired yet, the whole entire network team has changed. They fire everybody at the network and replace them with all new people. And right there, our project died because the person who bought the show was no longer there. And now it's like you get a job and you're sitting at somebody else's desk. The first thing you do is clean out their desk and put all your stuff in it.
Yeah.
And that's a metaphor for what happened to our show. And even though contractually they aired it because they had to finish it and air it, there was no promotion. So the show did well on its own, but it only aired one time on Discovery Channel in America. But they licensed it everywhere. It ended up on Netflix and it was getting rerun all the time. And but there was never going to be another episode. And so fans were emailing me from all around the world going, when are we going to see another episode of the show? And Taylor, my girlfriend, said, why don't you just do these little pitches that you've been doing, just make them into little YouTube movies and just start doing YouTube.
Yeah.
So that was my first YouTube movie, I think in the fall of 11. So I was maybe the fall of 11 or 12. I can't remember exactly. I mean, you can go back chronologically and see, but I started making these little clips of me just doing stuff. And it's something that I had pitched years before, right after we did the TV show Trash to Cash. One of the producers on the show ended up working at MTV. So I sent her a video of me making this old foot. It's like one of my first videos on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I was like, wouldn't it be cool if I made these little 30-second videos of me making stuff? We can use them as interstitials in and out of bumpers of me making the MTV logo and didn't go anywhere. So the idea of me making fast-paced things has been around for a long time.
Yeah.
Anyway, so once I realized I had no control, you just have no control in the TV business. And like I said, you always, even when Dirty Money was a wonderful experience, but I don't watch the episodes. And when I do happen to see an episode, I go, oh yeah, that was the time I had to give up this about myself. Oh yeah, that's the time I had to give up this idea. That's the time I had to compromise with that person about their horrible idea. That's the time I had to, oh yeah, I remember I had to pretend to be interested in this person's idea. And that's what TV is like.
Yeah.
It's funny. I'm only having that reckoning right this moment. So, yeah. TV is giving up your ideas to somebody else's bad ideas.
Yeah.
And so,
go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, so YouTube I'm the executive producer, cameraman, editor, idea man, and TV star. I'm all those things in one, and I'm not going to argue with myself. I'm going to do exactly what I want.
Yeah. What is it makes you share so much? Because I feel like I hear tons of interviews and I talk with tons of people. Everyone's like, man, Jimmy's awesome. Like, he talks to you, he shares everything, he like really enjoys what he's doing. But like, even through TV or it's through teaching and not through YouTube, people are just awesome and they just make things and for commission and that's it. Like, why do you put so much out there for other people?
I guess because I've always been a teacher. I'm a natural teacher, and I like sharing things. I used to be friends with a doctor. We're no longer friends through a matter of circumstances, but he was constantly helping people and saying, oh yeah, well, this is the problem. This is what you do with it. And he would say, he goes, I feel like I'm going to hoard this information. This person needs help right here. I'm going to hoard this and I'm going to funnel it through my office for a certain amount of money for a certain period of time. He goes, I just give it away. I mean, he's poor and he's broke and he doesn't have any money, but he feels more fulfilled giving the information away that he knows will benefit people. And I kind of have the same point of view. I could, firewall my life and charge people to come in and do stuff. And that's what I guess I'm doing with the Axe class. But when I do something like the Axe class or the photography class, I'm basically setting up an environment for people to have a completely creative, immersive experience.
Yeah.
They can pick my brain for as much as they need to while they're here. We feed them. They get to spend a few nights here at the house. But so far, both times I've hired extremely experienced people to teach what it is that that class is about.
Yeah.
So you have my input, what I know, and then you have their input and what they know. And they're usually more of an expert on it than me. So I can come in with the concepts and help you kind of free yourself up creatively, but technically, this is exactly what you should know. And So it's a great experience for me and the other teacher or teachers, and it's a great experience for the students because they see me learning too. I'm like, oh wow, this is how that's amazing. I didn't know that does that. So this ACTS class, I learned a tremendous amount from the teacher as well as the students learning from the teacher. So
That's cool.
I think it sets up a great environment, and it's also very natural, and nothing's forced.
Yeah.
But I like giving information away because what am I going to do? It's just going to sit in my head anyway. Might as well just pass it on.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really neat.
Thank you.
So going back to YouTube, has it always just been kind of like increase, or is there a point where you're like, hey, this is a thing that like I could actually, whether it's not a career, but like I can actually, this is a little bit bigger than me just putting videos out, I guess.
I've always known that the potential was there because there was always PewDiePie and there's other celebrity YouTubers that have always been there. It seems from the very beginning. So I always knew there was a possible career here, and I thankfully have the peace of mind to know, like, hey, if all goes to pot, I could just go dig ditches.
Yeah.
I can go offer my services to make bookshelves. I'll always be okay. So when it came to YouTube, I never really had to say, okay, I'm declaring my independence from my other life, because my other life is everything. I just make stuff. Whether like I just quoted 7 garment racks, and that'll be a great YouTube video of me making a garment rack.
Yeah.
But I'm charging $1,000 per garment rack. That's $7,000. It'll take me 3 days worth of work.
Yeah.
So I'll always be okay. So even as YouTube is ramping up, I could always I get offered jobs all the time, which I turn down. Like, hey, do you want to build out my whole restaurant? It's like $100,000 worth of work, but that's not fun because I'm going to be chasing my tail the entire time, making sure they're happy, and the stress is too much. If I could make $5 or $8 or $7, $10,000 from a sponsored video in my shop where I never have to leave, it's done in a few hours. I don't have to park my truck in front of some place where I'm going to get towed away from.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's my life has gotten gradually easier.
Yeah.
But I could still always do that other work if I wanted to. It's always available for me.
Yeah.
So, I guess it's like it used to be like 90% like installation work and 10% YouTube. Now it's the other way around. It's flipped, and my life has become a little bit easier, and I'm making a little bit more money, working a little less hard.
Yeah. Yeah. So is your filter then like, am I going to enjoy doing this when you're getting pitched ideas of things to build? Is that kind of how you run it? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, because I've spent so many years just saying yes to everything because I needed the money.
Yeah.
And now it's like, okay, well, do I want to do these garment racks? That means I have to do them in 1 week, and that means I have to stay up late a couple nights in a row because I got to go to Fab Tech, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll do them.
Yeah.
But then if I say I got too much to do, that's not going to be fun, working late and getting grinding dust in my teeth.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's always weighed against the potential pain in the butt that it could.
Gotcha.
And then when somebody offers me like FU money for something, like the budget is $20,000 and all you have to make is a bench, because it's an advertising thing. Advertising money is always much more money. I'll say, okay, cool. I'll do it.
Yeah, I'll take that. Yeah.
I know it's gonna. Yeah, I'll just stay up late tonight and do it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I know you were out shooting September. I don't know if you can actually talk about what the show was or anything yet, but what I wanted to ask is, so you're doing YouTube at the same time now. You're over 1 million views, and then you're back doing like full out production. Was it weird, like seeing both sides of things? Like you're in that world, you're almost like in both worlds at the same time.
Yeah, well, it's funny. When I went to it was an NBC TV show. It's called Making It, which is a whole nother story because it's the same name as my podcast.
Yeah.
And it's the Nick Offerman, Amy Poehler. They've already they PR'd a little bit about it. There's some stuff in the news about it, so I suppose I could talk about it. And I'm the shop teacher on the show. The contestants compete against one another to win fame and prizes, and I am the shop teacher as each one of them do their challenges. I make sure they don't get hurt, and I help them engineer their projects a little bit. So, and I'm like a very small part of the show, even though it's a great opportunity for me. The show's not about me. A lot of people are like, when is your show coming out? I'm like, no, I'm like one cog in the wheel of that whole show. The show is about the contestants. But watching the wastefulness of a network show is just amazing. They're spending millions and millions of dollars to get the same amount of views that somebody potentially like me can get.
Yeah, yeah.
With $100 GoPro camera and a stupid idea.
Yeah.
And that's it reinforces what I'm doing is right when I go there and I see. And for instance, I'm doing 1 week's worth of work for a segment of money. I can make that same segment of money in 5 minutes on YouTube.
Yeah.
But because the TV game is like in this old system, it's like, oh, you're going to get this per episode. I'm like, I get that in 10 minutes on YouTube. All my agents like, it's a different thing. It's totally different. It's still, you just got to do this. It could be huge potential. And that's why I did it, because the potential, the upside of me being on NBC, if I'm on NBC primetime, 10 million people could see me in one night.
Yeah.
10 million people haven't seen me in the last 5 years, you know?
Yeah.
So we'll see if it means anything, if it helps move the needle. But I did it for purely selfish reasons, and that's because of my YouTube.
Yeah, totally.
I want to use NBC as a parasite to grow my YouTube so I could charge more money for my branded videos.
Gotcha. That makes sense. So,
that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, I would, I know we're wrapping up here, but I definitely have to ask. So you were on that show with Nick Offerman. How did that relationship start?
Oh yeah, I've answered that question a few times. Nick and when I was doing the TV show Hammered at HGTV, my brother had the ability in his contract to go do comedy and drama, because I was a reality TV person and John was also a reality, but he also had this whole career of comedy. So his agent carved that out for him, and he got an opportunity to do a show with a cast of people called American Body Shop on Comedy Central, and Nick Offerman was on that show.
Okay.
He plays a really crazy character. Like, this is going back now. Do you remember the TV show Taxi?
Yeah.
Do you remember the Jim Ignatowski character, the guy who became Doc Brown?
Yeah.
He was like kind of the crazy weirdo New Yorker, like always had string in his pocket and stuff.
Right.
Nick played that same type of character, but on American Body Shop.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Really, really. Not, I mean, it wasn't the same character, but it was that type of like oddball, completely out of left field type of character, and he did a really great job of it. So if you ever find old episodes of American Body Shop, check out Nick. And anyway, so Nick came to New York, and John said, "Oh, look up my brother," because John was in LA at the time. So Nick came to New York. He looked me up, and he's like, "Hey, I'm looking for a place to build a canoe." And Nick was just another actor like my brother. Nick wasn't as famous as he is now. And he said, "I want to build a canoe. Do you know where I can build a canoe?" And he looked at my New York shop, and my New York shop was too small. And he ended up renting a place in Red Hook. And then he calls me almost a full week later. He's like, "Hey, I got a great place in Red Hook." He goes, "But I got a proposition for you. I'm going to build this canoe, and this company doesn't have a DVD. So I offered them the opportunity of, while I build this canoe, somebody could videotape me building the canoe. Do you want to do it?" And without even, before he was done, I said, "Yeah, I'll do it." I was like, "Yeah, sure, let's do it." And he couldn't believe it. He's like, "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah." I go, "It'll be fun." Because I'm always looking for opportunities to improve skills. So I thought, I'm like, wow, this is going to be 20 hours of video at least, and I got to cut it down to an hour probably.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I'll do that. And it'll be fun because I get to watch somebody make a canoe, which I've never seen being made. And so a week later, he and I were in a car driving 600 miles up into Toronto to go pick up 2 canoe kits. And we met Joan and Ted, the owners of Bear Mountain Boats, and they were wonderful people. We cemented a friendship there that's still ongoing, and with each other, and then with Nick, with Joan and Ted, the owners of Bear Mountain Boats. They're wonderful people. And they gave me a canoe a couple of years ago, which I haven't had a chance to build yet, but that's an upcoming project for my YouTube channel. But yeah, and that's how that happened. And the rest is history. And while we were working on the canoe project, Nick goes, "Hey, I got a great opportunity for this character. It's written for me. It's a great character. It's going to be fun. It's a show about like national parks or something." He was like, "Oh, cool."
Yeah.
Of course.
Ron
Swanson was born.
Yeah.
I'm looking for my dog under my feet. That's why I'm moving away from the microphone.
No, you're fine. You're totally fine. So was it weird or slash fun getting to work with him? Like, I guess more in his world and your world too? Yeah. Nick and I, obviously, like we pitched a show together a couple of years ago, and it didn't work out. We both looked at it and we're like, you know what? This isn't fun. We both were like, he likes the comedy drama, but this was a reality show. And, of us. It was kind of exactly what Anthony Bourdain is doing right now, going around and meeting people in their workshop. That's what me and Nick were going to do. Nick was going to be the executive producer of the show and kind of sometimes host, and I was going to be the full-time person because he didn't have the schedule to devote full-time. So he's like, his wife said, "Why don't you ask Jimmy? Isn't Jimmy good at making stuff and being on TV?" He's like, "Oh yeah, it's a great idea." So he's like, "Hey, you want to try this?" And we pitched the show. Yeah, we got interest from everybody, but everybody wanted to do a pilot, which is a great thing to leave a meeting going, they want a pilot. But I go, for them to not pick up a series, at the time I had a few 100,000 subscribers, and Nick, of course, was Nick, and
was like, they're not going to pick up a 12 episode pickup based on, our idea. I go, that's kind of annoying. I was like, you know what? I don't think we're being treated with the respect we deserve. So we both just he agreed and we went our own way. And then now this show came up.
That's cool.
And he said, do you want to be involved in the show? I was like, sure. So I started talking to the casting people and here it is. We've just shot 6 episodes and the show is going to air, I think, in January.
Oh, cool. Real cool.
Yeah, it's very funny. Nick and Amy are super funny, and the judges are super funny. So
yeah,
if anything carries the show, it'll definitely be the comedy. Just so many laughs. It was great.
That's fun. That's probably. Well, I appreciate you hanging out on this or what is this, Wednesday? Yeah, Wednesday morning, Tuesday morning.
Is it Wednesday?
It's Tuesday. It's Tuesday. I don't even know what day it is. Tuesday morning.
Is it Tuesday?
Yeah, it's Tuesday.
It's
Sorry.
Tuesday the 24th.
That's not his schedule. He doesn't know what it is. But I know the last thing I kind of wanted to ask, and you do a great job of this, is you do a great job of leveraging your platform for other people. Are there folks that you would say, hey, these folks aren't getting enough attention, like they're doing that you'd encourage other people to check out?
Mm-hmm. Oh, you're asking me, is there anybody that I could recommend? Is that what you're asking me?
Yeah.
Well, I just was emailing with This Old Tony. He's becoming a friend, and This Old Tony is a great YouTuber. I talked about him recently in my podcast. And who else? I think everybody deserves a chance. So when somebody says, "Hey, subscribe to me," I subscribe, and I like one of their videos. And everybody started somewhere. So I think everybody needs encouragement. And I credit Make Magazine with my big jump in views, because I was bumping along, and I had a little bit of TV fame, but not enough to really carry me. And when I started posting videos on Make channel, that's when my channel really started to grow quickly. And then that just kind of spread like cracks in a windshield from there on. And then you get a viral video here and there. And then, when you're in the deep end of the ocean, when the comments are not just accolades, they're negative ones too.
Yeah.
So if you're a young YouTuber and you start getting negative comments, you're in you're out of the harbor, you're in the ocean, and that's a good place to be when it comes to being playing in this game.
Yeah. You're the way you treat trolls is one of my favorite things. Even in your comments, you'll just I was reading like a Reddit that you did like an AMA a few years ago. With someone saying, "No, he's not safe," and you just came right back at him. You're like, "Oh, what have you been working on?" or something like that. I was like, "That's awesome." So,
I have a couple of policies when I play with trolls. I never curse.
Yeah.
Although I have lost my temper once in a while, I usually delete those comments.
Yeah.
You can see the residue of me losing my temper. I delete the comments. A lot of times, I'll say exactly what I'll say. You bleepity bleep 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 h bleep 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 bleep. I hit send and then I hit it delete because I know it goes to their email.
Yeah.
So I know they'll get the email. I'll say, you MF, you could screen grab this and try and show it to people. I don't care. You're a so-and-so, so-and-so. And then I delete the comment immediately because I know they'll at least get it inside their skull somehow.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I try and just never curse, and I always try and keep a clever retort. Sometimes I say, "Mom, I told you stop watching my YouTube channel," and that gets a laugh.
That's funny. Yeah.
As if the person being mean is my mother.
That's good. That's good. Yeah. Well, just JimmyDiresta.com for folks that.
JimmyDiresta.com, YouTube, Instagram, everything. Yeah.
Well, good stuff. Well,
it's been a game changer. The internet. It's really, and I have friends now all around the world. Most of my friends that I hang out with on a daily basis are people I met through YouTube.
That's cool.
Kyle's at my house right now. Kyle from RR Builders. He's here with his buddy Greg, and 2 years ago, I nervously sent them an email saying, "Hey, would you be interested in making a building?" And I didn't know if he would even see it or answer back. So it's funny. We're all like stars of each other. It's great.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your time. It was a blast chatting with you. So on this Tuesday,
Thank you,
Tuesday
bud.
mornings.
Yeah.